Hey everyone, hey Glow Stars. We're excited to be back today. Today is Monday, and we truly believe we have something not only motivational to share about today, but also just knowing a hope that God can heal your heart. Today's topic that we'll be sharing about is matters of the heart. And we thought this was important to share because this is the main reason why people come to therapy due to a broken heart. So, if you can identify with this, you understand as a people that hurt people. And we're living in a world, not just as Christians, but we're living in a world where there's a lot of hurt people. And we would just want to share today how you can actually be healed, how you can be made whole again. I have two scriptures that I'm going to share, and then me and my partners and I today, we're going to elaborate on this topic. So, without further ado, the first scripture that I wanted to share, it comes from Amos 9:11 and 12, and it's in the Message version. And what it says is, but also on that day of judgment, I will restore David's house that had fallen to pieces. I want to stop right there because when God speaks about a house in the Bible, he's literally talking about your heart. He's talking about your life. So this is also an indication already that he definitely understands that in this world, we will all encounter things that will break us. He says, I'll repair the holes in the roof, replace the broken windows, fix it up like new. David's people will be strong again, and they will seize what's left of the enemy, plus everyone else under my sovereign judgment, God's decree. He will do this. The second scripture that I would like to share is from Proverbs 4:23. It says, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of life. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the soul. The soul, it encompasses your mind, your will, and emotions. When your heart has been broken, when you have been through devastating things, it's easy for people out there to come into agreement about what they have experienced. Your heart, starting from childhood, holds everything in it. So your heart is the gateway to life. When you people will say like you have to have a made up mind, but you also have to have a made up heart. What you come into agreement to in your heart, it definitely comes out in your life. So to piggyback off what I shared about just how God restores things, this is why God in therapy is so important as a people, as a society, as a generation. We just want to share with you all today that you don't have to stay broken. Ladies, I'm gonna open it up to you because I know I've said a lot.
No, you're fine. I was I just wanted to add to what you were saying about the heart. So we know that a lot of times our minds will say one thing, but then we want to lead and make choices in our hearts. But a lot of times the choices that we make that are from our heart are from a place of what we believe, right? As far as like, I believe that, this person loves me. So I feel it in my heart, right? That I should stay. And even though we in our minds know, like, oh my goodness, this person has taken me through this, that, or whatever, we will still make choices based off our hearts. But so that means if your heart is broken, that means if you just have unhealed, trauma or things, whatever those issues that have, you know, occur within the heart, and if they have not been healed, then we know that you begin to make choices that may not necessarily be the best choices in life. And so we have to make sure that we take care of what's going on the inside of us. We got to make sure we get those hearts healed completely, because if we don't, then we'll just continue to make the same mistakes over and over again, because we're not actually thinking with our minds. We're allowing the issues of life to flow from our heart and now bleed onto other people. As well as those issues affect other people if we don't, get a real grip on them. So we have to be careful. We have to be mindful when we have, when we say we feel a certain way, and my heart feels this or my heart feels that, we have to be very careful with our emotions and our feelings to not move out of them, and truly now allow our hearts and our minds to line up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. What I was going to add was this analogy God gave me was, you know how when you have a glass bowl or something and it breaks, and
Mm-hmm.
then let's say this was your favorite bowl and you want to put the pieces of it back together. Now, even if you put every piece back together, that bowl is not the same it was before it was broken, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we refer to the heart, it's similar like that. So although God can restore and he will restore even a broken heart, we have to remember that this is an important reason why we have to heal, because although God has restored you and your heart is no longer broken, you still have experienced those things. And what
Yeah.
we do is that we remember those things. And so we have to remember those things. It's important to remember, because I know people want to be like, God restored me. I don't have to remember those. You have to remember those things because you don't ever want to get back to that place, the
Mm-hmm.
place that he restored you from. So
Mm-hmm.
even though we have this heart that has some pieces that we have restored and put back together, that God has put us on a journey to restore and put back together, we have to remember where we came from. So we don't take those same pieces that he put back together and get them broken again because we didn't do the healing portion of our journey, um, and completely get past those situations. Our heart can be very what's the word I'm looking for? It can take us down a path that we shouldn't go. And so Tatiana and Gail always tell me that I'm the more logical thinker of the three of us sometimes, because I say, wait, make this make sense to me. Well, the thing with the matters of our heart is that our heart doesn't always think logically. Our heart
Mm-hmm.
thinks by our emotions and our feelings, and our emotions and our feelings aren't always truthful.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. It's not always truthful. We can stay connected and love someone that is so bad for us. And I think most people can attest to that. And so having an open and healed heart would allow you to start thinking in the parts of you that will take you on a better journey than just the feelings of our emotions.
That's good. When you guys were talking, I was just thinking about us three as women, right? And I know men are going to be listening, but have y'all ever just known a friend, family member, even us at times, been with a man that logically everybody can be like, man, this dude is wrong. Like, this not right. Why they dealing with this person? It don't make sense. But yeah, Miss Crystal said the heart and the mind are not friends. This is true.
Mm-hmm.
We've all attached ourselves at one point in time to something or someone that was not good with us based off our heart and reasoning with our heart. Oh, we hope this person to change, or we hope this person to do right. But being honest, we have to understand the unhealed version, the unhealed part of our own hearts. What would allow you to connect to a person like that? I was telling the ladies not to get into it, but just in dating and how men approach me sometimes. And they just say the first thing that's a red flag to me. And I know, oh, no, this is a unhealed person. And I can recognize, the flags now being a healed person, what is not going to be good for me. What broke me, we should learn from what breaks us. So when we heal, like what Darnisha said, we have a remembrance. If I go down this road, this is definitely what's going to happen to me again. This is why God says, guard your heart above all things else, because this is the way, this is how life begins for us all. When we come into this world, we are not broken people. But as soon as you get in this world, the world is going to break you. The world has one job, and it is to do that. So a lot of time as therapists, we encounter people that have had childhood trauma, grief, loss, all of these things, and could have started 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, but look how long that your heart endured that. So we walk around with this shattered heart, this broken heart, and we try to attach ourselves to the things that, whether we understand that or not, broke us. Again, this is why it's important to get God, and it's important to get therapy, because we have things to do, and one thing we cannot do that being broken.
Right. Most definitely. Oh, go ahead, Darnisha.
And we've all seen what a broken heart looks like from an individual standpoint. I think we can all attest to a person in our life with unbroken heart. I think one of the things of the healed version, like you said, is being able to see the brokenness in other people. Things that I would have in my 20s wouldn't have I wouldn't have paid it the least bit of attention to. But now through simple conversation with people, I'm talking about men and women. So it's not just from a daddy standpoint or a spouse, but even your friendships, the
Mm-hmm.
people you encounter at work, things of that sort. You can tell when people are speaking and operating from a broken aspect of themselves. And so remember, when you have a broken heart, you inflict pain on other people unbeknownst to you oftentimes. And so one thing that I don't think anybody wants is anyone inflicting pain, even if it's emotional pain,
Right.
on someone else. And oftentimes people from brokenness, they inflict their pain on their spouses, their kids, because it's just the people closest to you, because they haven't done the necessary work.
Right.
Yeah, you're right, Miss Crystal. Miss Crystal said it hits differently when your sight is clear. Absolutely. Our heart is connected to every part of our body. If we think just from a medical standpoint, right? Everything flows to the heart, blood, oxygen,
That's
everything flows from there, right? And so it's just like that from a philosophical standpoint. When we are disconnected or have this broken heart, it affects how we think, it affects how we see people, it affects how we move, right? And so once that part of you is completely restored with God and healed through therapy, all those things look and feel so much differently, and you're able to see, like Miss Crystal said, much more clearly what is in front of you and the people, or in the people in front of you. Because in when those moments in our lives, those times in our lives when we weren't really healed, we couldn't see the brokenness in people. We had
right.
to literally be hurt before we could really truly see the brokenness in people. Um, Go ahead, Gail.
Oh, I was just going to add, and what's important about what you just said, why we couldn't see it, is you identify with what you are.
There you go. Mhm.
So, you want to know why you attract the same type of thing or why you deal with the same type of issues. It's not so much about what you're attracting, but what is it in you that is attracting them. It's matters of the heart. A lot of times when we talk with couples, and we always talk about, a lot of times, trauma, we call it trauma bonding.
Mhm.
Usually the negative thing that we have dealt with in life is what attracts you to another person. Oh, they dealt with the same things that I've dealt with, but have they dealt with that?
Right.
Because if you connect yourself to a broken person, you all are just trauma bonded. And I tell Darnish, I tell my client this all the time. I don't want to connect to nobody based off my hurt, based off my pain. That is the wrong way to connect with a person.
Absolutely.
Most definitely. Oh, just to add to that, I would just say, I know that a lot of times we believe that once we get to a place and we're doing better, that we have now conquered and overcome, right? But then we end up falling back and going through the same cycles. That's because we haven't actually finished the process. So we know that this is going to be a life process. This isn't just going to be something that we can say, oh, I've learned, I got the tools, I've done my little bit of therapy, and now I'm good to go. And then when we actually fall short, then we beat up ourselves even more,
Yep.
because we fell short. And the thing about it is that this is most definitely God knows and knew that we will fall short. But don't just stay stuck just because you failed in that moment. Now you got to be like, oh, okay, well, how did I even get back to this place? Right. And so we have to understand also, in the growing process, there's still going to be things and people that still try to come to us to pull us back into the same cycles. It
Mhm.
doesn't just go away just because you are now going to God and doing therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Those things still come
Mhm.
back up. So that means it's going to be a continuous work through the process. Um, it's like this. There's no easy way out. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to go through the steps. You have to continue to make sure you move forward. And if you do look back to see how far you come. And even if you do fall short, you don't have to now beat yourself up, and you also don't have to be like, oh man, I let everybody down, I let myself down, I let God down, I let my therapist down, or whatever the case may be, because that's not true. The thing is that we have to understand that we are human, we're not perfect, and all we're doing is working to become the best version of ourselves. And so in order to become the best version of yourself, guess what, you have to make mistakes in order to learn, in order to continue to grow. And so it's not a pass to be like, oh, I'm just going to be out here making mistakes, which we know that, and we see that a lot, because people try to take advantage of grace. And so we can't now go into things thinking I already have a pass, so it's okay for me to mess up because I've been given the right to a pass. But the pass wasn't meant for you to have, for you to take advantage of. It was just saying, hey, my grace is sufficient. And so in that understanding that he's sufficient, his grace is sufficient within us, and now understanding that, hey, I still have a part to play in this, right? So now it's up to me to make sure that I'm partaking in what God is asking me to do, and I'm not trying to take advantage of what he's given me by grace. And so it's okay to just take your time through the process. Don't feel like you got to rush in order to jump into the next friendship, the next relationship, the next partnership in business, or whatever. It is a process. Like Darnisha said before, it is a marathon. So that means we got miles and miles and miles and miles to go.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that you got to go out here and do a 40. You know what I'm saying? To be able to now say, hey, I done did it. I done got this done in 4.4 seconds. I'm good. And so just take time. Just know it takes time. And your trauma may have been 20 years ago. So do
Mm-hmm.
you think that 20 years of trauma
Right.
is going to now be healed in
In 2
4.4
days.
seconds?
Yeah. Right.
You know, so it I just want, that's what I just keep hearing. It's just like, it's okay to sometimes just go at a snail's pace. It does not have to be the rat race to where you're just moving and going so fast just to try to get to the finish line. You want to make sure that you're complete, you want to make sure that you're whole, and you want to make sure that you are becoming the best or whatever. I'm not looking for anything less than God's best. So because I've walked through what I've been through in the past in relationship, even with being in those relationships, becoming healed in those moments, then you start to see things that weren't there before, but they've already been there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but we start to see things a lot more clear, and things, it's like it becomes just highlighted, like on a more grand scale, like, oh my goodness, who are you and where did you come from? But it's been right there in your face the entire time. So it's okay to just make sure that we're continuing to heal and continuing to take our time to get there.
Yeah, what I was going to add is, I talk about time a lot, especially working with kids, because kids have no sense of time, right? They don't understand like 2 days, 5 days, 10 days.
Right.
But I think as adults, as we get older, we will equate time as I missed something, or I missed out, or we
Mm-hmm.
equate that into time. When the reality is, I rather have all these good years of really good healed times, understanding people, understanding myself, than all these years of brokenness because I'm trying to rush a process that God is saying, no, if you just slow down, catch everything I'm trying to tell you, and go through this process appropriately, then you get to that point actually quicker than what you assume. But because I equate it to weight loss, I think it's the easiest way. Most of us takes years to gain the certain amount of weight that we gain, but boy, don't we want to lose it in 90 days. Like it took you about 5 years to get to this weight you at now. You want to be able to lose it in 10 days. That's not what's gonna happen. And it's not the healthiest way to do it either.
Right.
And that these things take some time. Even for those that maybe had a decent childhood and that wasn't an issue, and you got a good portion of your trauma that you're dealing with now in adulthood. Most of the time, those relationships or however you got that trauma, it was probably years in the making. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
happen. I mean, yes, trauma can happen in one day, but most of us healing from trauma is usually something that took some time to get to that point. And understanding that even if it did take one day for some massive trauma to happen in your life, the human mind is going to need more than one day to process
Yeah.
that trauma.
Yeah.
And you have to give yourself enough grace to understand that and walk the process out anyways with that. And that's really one of the important things, because we will psych ourselves out because it's either taking longer or it doesn't look like what we've envisioned in our own head. And my thing is that we got to look at the end goal. Where am I trying to get to? Let me focus on trying to get there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Let me, instead of focusing on where I'm not at right now, let me just focus on trying to get closer to the goal I'm trying to complete, um, as opposed to where I feel like I should be and I'm not there yet. Let's just keep moving. People will stop. Literally, we see it in therapy all the time, where they've been to therapy for a month and they feel like they're not making the progress they need to be making in a month. And I'm like, we've only had 4 sessions. Just chill out. You know what I'm saying? Chill out. We gonna get there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I wanted to talk about this. We're talking about healing and why it's so important. Darnisha, you had made a good point earlier that everything starts with the heart. So your heart is even connected to a lot of times how you get physical diseases, physical illnesses, and things, because everything is stored in the heart. And when I was thinking about this earlier, God wanted me to share the definition of affliction and infliction. So affliction is basically a problem or illness causes pain or suffering to affect or trouble. When you're afflicted by something, it might just be one issue. It might just be one problem, and that's a problem that you have to deal with. But then God gave me the definition of infliction, means inner stuff. The affliction of afflicting something unpleasant or painful on someone or something. There's a lot of us today that was afflicted by something, but then we connected to people with things that continue to inflict us. So even with that being said, there's a lot of matters of the heart that have really festered inwardly because of one issue that we did not take care of. It grows. When I was thinking about this and I was talking to God about it, um, sexually transmitted diseases are not the only diseases and inflictions that we can get as a people. So when we're talking about matters of the heart, there's also spiritual and soul diseases that we catch.
Mhm.
So some diseases we know are easily to be cured, but then some diseases are not so easily to be cured, like what you were saying about time. So when one thing happens to you, it should be enough to where you say, okay, let me check this out. Let me get the healing that I need so that it doesn't become an infliction. It's like you can ignore a cut on your finger, then it gets infected, meaning it got inside. You know what I mean? But this
Mhm.
is the matters of the heart and what a lot of people deal with. We allow things to get inside us because we just didn't deal with it head on. So why G.L.O.W is really talking about healing, it's like they say the silent thing, stress is a silent killer, or worry. It causes your organs to have diseases in your body, diseases in your organs. It's important why God tells us to heal, because everything is connected to your heart, and once the heart goes, everything goes.
Yep. Yep. That is very much true. And that was a good analogy, Gail. I love that, afflicted versus inflicted. You're absolutely right about the mind frame of being afflicted by someone when something happens to us, and how
Mm-hmm.
much pain we inflict on other people because we haven't taken care of that. I also can go as far as say that's how generational curses are breeded, and continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people in our families are afflicted, never deal with this stuff, and then they continue to afflict their children, their
Yep.
spouses,
Yep.
grandkids, so much and so on. And so, because they haven't dealt with those things that start from being afflicted by something or someone, um,
Mm-hmm.
it creates and it festers just like you said, like a disease would. That's how generational curses are breeded, and continue to go on.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much that we can really talk about with the heart because it covers a multitude of things,
Yeah.
and we don't recognize those things because we tend to have a generation or a society who kind of feels like if you don't have outer rooms, that the inner rooms aren't as important. Not understanding is that your inner rule wounds create some of the outer rooms that we see, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about some of the outer rooms that we see, like bitterness
Yeah.
and and worry and anxiety and depression, poor attitudes, lack of communication skills. All of those things we can see in other people, but not knowing that there's some inner rooms in there that's creating what we see on the outer side of them. So it's really important to really dig deep. And I think any of us, and I think this is for anybody, I don't care how great of a life you live currently, right now, as an adult, most of us can attest to a time in our life where our heart has been broken.
Yeah.
And most of us can attest if they really do some soul searching, whether we actually dealt with that or as we're allowing ourselves to still fester in that heartbreak, and then functioning in life like that. Especially when you're talking about from a relationship standpoint. You get your heart broken. This person did something to you, so now your heart is so guarded to the point that you won't even allow the good in. So, yes, the Bible says to guard your heart, but not to guard your heart to the point that you don't even allow him in. You don't allow the good stuff he's trying to give you in because you're so guarded from the hurt that you never got the necessary help from. And
Mm.
so, when guards at gates, right, they let the people in that's supposed to be let in, and they keep the people out that's not supposed to be in there. Well,
I got
oftentimes
you.
what we do is we guard it and we don't let nobody in.
Right.
Good, bad, and we let zero. So that means the good people that's there to defend them and that heart that those
Mhm.
guards let in, you don't even have that
Right.
because you guarded it so tightly.
Right.
So we
That's
need to be able to determine it, and you only able to determine it by adequately addressing those things and then taking those steps to adequately heal from those things and put the pieces of your heart back together.
Yeah. So Miss Crystal has said, so how can a person recognize when they are healed if a relationship ends after being together for a year? So a lot of times what happens is in relationships, I feel like because we're opening ourselves up and allowing people in sexually, so you are giving your soul to somebody else, it makes it a lot harder.
transmitted. Yes.
It makes it a
Mhm.
lot harder to heal because really, oh, so what really is happening is that now you have allowed them to take a part of you with you. I mean, with them, and a part of them is now left with you. So,
Transmitted.
so
Mhm.
the thing about it is that the after a year or whatever, and you've been constantly, in as far as intimate, you've had all these different things. So everything that they've dealt with in life, whether it's their own trauma, whether it's their own, depression, anxiety, whatever that is, you are dealing with all of those things as well. So your soul has been now separated and is detaching, right? And so you
I think of cut out.
You know that?
I was just gonna say this until Tatiana gets back, but she made a good point about intimate. God been keeping these N words in because once you become intimate with someone, you're attaching it to your soul. Y'all are in. Y'all are one with another. That's the same with just being in. You have to understand the connections that you make. People are so casual. Oh, that's a good one too. People
Mm-hmm.
are so casual with sex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sex is freely given now. You don't even take a second look, but this is why STDs are way high, so high. I got you, Tatiana. I was waiting for you to come back,
I'm
but
like,
I like what you said.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
but
for whatever reason, my internet want to act.
yeah, the devil is a liar because he didn't want you to get that one out there. But
uh,
yeah, that's what Miss Crystal said. When you're in, what I was saying, Tatiana, is when you use the word intimate, just like inflictions, this means that you're entwined
yeah,
now.
Yeah.
When one person has an STD and they give that person, now you got what they got. Same thing. Everything is intertwined. It's all connected.
Right.
So just as casual as our generation is with sex, we're just as casual with our soul, our
Mm-hmm.
mind, our will, and emotions. And this is why God is saying you have to guard your heart for against these things. You cannot be casual with yourself.
Right.
You know, you cannot be casual with your heart. You're not supposed to be casual with who you sleep with because all these things are important.
Mm-hmm.
Again, just like we get sexually transmitted disease, we can have spiritual transmitted disease, and you're going to get whatever that person has.
Right. I mean, but also just thinking about what the word says, when you are fornicating and everything, that is the one sin that goes against your
Your
own
own body.
body.
Your own body.
And
Mhm.
so, why would you want to continue that's an automatic infliction, that's an automatic set up for you to be hurt. And the thing about it is that just because you have sex with a person before you get married and you end up getting married to them, it doesn't even take away the
The
fact.
sin.
Right. It doesn't take away the fact that you already opened yourself up to be broken in that moment before the marriage happens. So guess what? A lot of people end up getting hurt in those moments. They may end up getting married later, but it doesn't mean that they didn't experience hurt in those moments before. And
Right.
so we have to be careful and move and operate as the word says. And now we are obviously older, so now we get to actually see why God set it up the way that he set it
Mm-hmm.
up.
Mm-hmm.
you know
Yes.
so
Yes.
if we look back and we be like, man, I would not have ever got in a relationship with a person.
Knowing what I know
I
now,
would have
and
known
Yes.
better, but we also have to do better with how we're giving the information. It's important. Darnisha and I was just having this conversation to know you can't have sex just to say, don't just tell people you can't have sex, it's bad for you. That doesn't make people not want to do it. But when you break it down and you say, hey, if you open yourself up to sex and then you will start to experience these things, that, and it opens you up to so much more spiritually. And and it's way worse things out than just getting a
here get a
beautiful
baby.
with a baby. And so
Right.
when you start doing, we have to do better as far as how we're delivering messages. We have to
Right.
make sure that we give people the knowledge and understanding of what's really behind these things versus just telling somebody not to do something. And
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like we will have, a lot of people to really think about it, at least second guess it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
do I really want to do that? Versus just being like, oh, well, they said, it's bad, but, is it really that bad? And
Mm-hmm.
then guess what? Now it's just generations of, things being passed down. Well, my mom did it, so I'm gonna do it, or my dad did it, so I'm gonna do it. So yeah.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Um, when we're having that conversation, I said, and now that we're the adults, that we have the responsibility to do better than that and be real. I've done it, all these years working with youth. I've even had parents want me to have a conversation. I'm like, look, I can, but your kids need to be able to trust you and go to you. They
Mhm.
can't call me in the middle of the night. That's for you. You need to develop that own relationship with your child. And oftentimes the parents don't want to do it. Why? Because their parents didn't do it. They
Mm-hmm.
don't even know what it sounds like. They don't even know what it looks like. So we have a responsibility because I want to, my future children, I want to be able to protect their hearts. I don't want them to feel the heartbreak that I felt at a young age and I didn't really understand why or the magnitude of what I was doing. And eventually didn't even understand why somebody would hurt me in that type of way. And what I had done in the people I allowed in my life and opened myself up to. I don't want my children to be able to have that type of heartbreak. And part of that starts with information and knowledge and not being afraid to tell your children that, making them understand, at the end of the day, you have a choice to make. I can't make it for you. But
Right.
this is what it could potentially look like if you make a decision that once you make it, that's it. Once you make it, decide to have that first act, you can't take it back. It is what it is, and we can't be fearful of that. God, Second Timothy said God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a power of love and a sound mind. You love your kids, you giving them the ability to use their brain, and they have the power to do that. We have to be truthful about that because heart issues for a lot of us started way younger, and then we wait till later in life to deal with those heart issues. But as parents now, because most of the people in our age group are parents, you have the opportunity to shield your kids from some of that heartbreak by simply giving them the necessary information.
Hmm. I just want to add to that because what Miss Crystal was saying, like breaking it down and giving the information. I
Mm-hmm.
truly believe this is what God has charged us to do with Glow. It's a lot of people that talk about therapy. It's a lot of people talking about healing, but they're not making it make sense. Like Tatiana said, like you can't just say, "Oh, sex is bad." No, let me break it down to you what exactly is about to go on when you do this. It's a clear explanation in a time where we have all the understanding in the world and access to all the information in this world. Common sense is really not common. And so, I mean, this is the truth. And this is
Right.
what we've been charged to do is to truly break down these topics, these issues. Like Miss Crystal said, the issues of the heart must be addressed and resolved. We're on here today talking about the matters of the heart, and we're giving you information about it. So, even like the scripture, I can read you a scripture, but let us break it down what this is actually saying and how this applies to you. Anyone that's listening here has dealt with matters of the heart, but we didn't deal with it. It's a lot of like Darnisha said, really starts with generational patterns, generational habits. The reason why it's called curses because it continues. So this will let you know for anyone that is listening out there, if you still struggling with stuff and you still struggling with stuff that your mama, your daddy, your cousins, your uncle, people are still dealing with, it hasn't been resolved. And so we're not up here just to be talking up here because this is something that we want to do. God is calling us to help you all make sense of this stuff. And this is what we do in therapy every day. We're actually sharing things and breaking them down to make it make sense to our generation because we are truly lost. I just keep hearing this, but I want to talk about why we are being so casual with ourselves, why we're being so casual with our soul, with our spirit. To me, that's identity problem. That's a lack of self-worth problem. That's a lack of value in yourself problem that has to be addressed because this is a broken world and it is a broken system because not people are not willing to fix what has been broken.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so true.
I agree.
I was
I
oh,
I just want to add there is that because I don't want this message to be misconstrued because people love to misconstrue your words. We're not saying sex is bad, okay? Sex in itself is
You
not
went with the right person.
bad. But God created sex to be between a husband and a wife. He was very strategic about that. And as women that are older and have been through that phase in our lives where it was at a point where it was casual, we understand why He created it for marriage. He created it for you to enjoy in marriage. He was
Mm-hmm.
very strategic about that because He understands the attacks on your mind, your will, and your emotions, on your soul when you open up yourself to someone or people for most of the world that you should not be connected to in that matter. So I don't want the message to be misconstrued as if we said sex is bad. Sex is great. God created it to be very great, but He created it for marriage. So you don't have these matters of the heart. So you're not inflicting against your own body. So
mm,
you're not taking that pain of heartbreaking and inflicting it on other people. And so understanding the word and God, understanding our own healing journeys, we understand the effects of not doing it that way. Good made at that time that um, uh, we had portions of our life where we were broken in those areas, and it took years of understanding God, understanding the work that we do, and how to get and using those tools that we provide, those practical applications to get beyond that. So information is important, um, and how you utilize it is important because what we often hear with the Bible, people give you these scriptures, but they don't give detailed explanation. This is why we always say study for yourself and how important your own relationship with God is, um, but also taking it and utilizing it. That's the big thing. You can have people out here that know the Bible. beginning, end, front and back, then read the entire Bible several times in their life. But how much of that are they actually utilizing?
Right.
It's the same thing with therapy. We all are undeniably great therapists in our own ways. But no matter how great of a therapist you are, if the therapist in front of you and you're the individual who's not ready to hear the information and actually do the steps, doesn't you can have a world renowned therapist and I've been a therapist for 30 years. You're not going to get the healing you deserve because you haven't made your mind up. Make your mind up
Yeah.
and get the healing that you deserve because your heart issues will affect how you do life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to say a lot of times, even with understanding the heart as well, we believe that because things have transpired in life, that because now we're responding to life a certain way, that now is, oh, that's just how I am. That's just me. That's just what I do. Right. And we now settle to be, I just like to, drink, right? Or Johnny, he the liar of the family. And we just label, everybody with certain things or whatever. But it has to come to a point in life to where it's just like, but I don't want to be like this. And
Mhm.
so in order to not be like that, that means you got to make a change. Okay. So, taking the steps to make that change, what does that look like? Because it's going to look different for everybody. So, but most importantly, just making sure that you do know who you are, your identity in Christ versus your identity in the world, because the world can say so much about you, and that's not even anywhere, close to who you are. Because remember, your life may have changed, because guess what? I'm not the same person I was last year. I'm not the same person, most definitely, that I was 20 years ago. But people that haven't seen me in 20 years will still approach me as if I still have the same mind frame and I'm the same person from 20 years ago, because
Right.
they haven't seen me or experienced me, in this way. And so, and that's the opportunity for you to now, hey, I'm gonna reintroduce myself to you and I'm gonna show you who I am. And I want you to know that you can't approach me or come to me the same way that you used to, or expect for me to respond how I did back then. And so we have to make sure that we don't settle, to settle in those things as far as within our hearts, to now make that as an excuse to continue to do the things that we know we shouldn't do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I don't care. I don't care if it was 20 days ago. You made your mind up. Don't let them come at you like you was the person 20 days ago. You got
Right.
to start somewhere. And people have to be okay with the changes you choose to make in your life. You're in control of it. Because they would say, oh, just a couple, don't matter. I don't care if it was just a couple of weeks. I was willing to do X, Y, and Z. I'm not doing it this week. Talk to you later. Bye.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just gonna piggyback about what you were saying about the sex thing and sex is bad. And what was coming to my mind, Darnisha, when you were saying that, that saying, they say one night of passion can lead to a lifetime of pain.
Mm,
So, this one night, really like an hour of a situation, will cause you a lifetime of problems, just because you didn't make the right decision. And I really wanted to share that and speak to people, because this is what we're encountering. We're not talking about sex, we're talking about matters of the heart. Because one situation could be the catalyst for a lifetime of issues or problems, because our heart wasn't healed,
right.
or we thought something was good based off our heart wanting it, not really listening to our mind. There has to be a balance. And again, this is what we do in therapy, but also in God. Like what Darnisha said, she can be the logical one. I can be the emotional one. I always feel, quote unquote. But with time and over time, like what Tatiana said about us growing, now we have a balance. I might want something in my heart, but logically, no, now it ain't good for me. I'm just not going to do it. Versus 10 years ago, oh, XYZ hit me up, I'm going. I don't care. Type of thing. Not understanding. I know what's going to come with that. And let's be real. A lot of us know, yeah, we're going to do this, and this is what we're going to have to deal with afterwards. But why? That is an unhealthy way to look at it. And also, I was talking to the team about why it's so important when you see a sign of sickness. It's like COVID. When we knew people had COVID, we stayed away. right? Like we didn't go. We had masks on. People coughed. People sneezed a lot. We was going the other way. So when you see these red flags in other people, why are we like bulls trying to run through these red flags, knowing that we gonna get what they got? It don't make sense.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's
I was
good.
just gonna say, so Miss Crystal wanted, she asked
Oh,
the
you awesome. She said we're all awesome. Miss Crystal, you
awesome.
awesome too.
Yeah. But
Yes.
she asked another question. So she said, that's it when life be life and how do you handle it? That's one of the first questions that she asked or whatever. And so here's the thing, life is gonna always be life, and because that's
Mhm.
life. But the thing about it is that you have to have tools in order to be able to handle life, as well as you have to have people around you that you can go to that's safe to be able. You need people around you that can encourage you, but it has to come to a point of maturity and growth to where you learn how to encourage yourself as well. Because guess what? Everybody may not be there at 3 o'clock in the morning and you don't have anybody but yourself and God, right? And so
Yeah.
you have to get to a place to where you mature in the things of God, as well as understanding your purpose and your assignment. One thing that I loved about God here recently, he told me he understands the human part of us when it comes to the weight of the assignment.
Mhm.
So understanding that even in those hard times and tough times, that God still knows how he created us and he made us human. Right?
Yeah.
He knows that he put us in a body. So guess what? That's why he sent Jesus. Jesus felt everything that we're feeling even in these times. And so none of us are exempt from how we feel about a thing or a situation, but we are most definitely responsible for how we handle the
Yeah.
situation.
Yes,
So
man.
we have to make sure that we stop putting, just because life is happening to us, now we try to go put it off on other people. Come out of the victim mentality that it's always everybody else doing stuff,
Yes.
to you, because it's not about the other people. What is God trying to do in you to shift your situation?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so we have to now shift in the way that we think. We have to come up higher in the way
Yes.
that we think, because this is one of the analogies that I always give when it comes to the way that we look at things. If I'm sitting here, of course I'm going to just be able to see the things that are just on this level, right? But I have a tall dresser, I'm not going to be able to see the stuff that's up high.
That's
But if
good.
I stand up and rise
That's
above
good.
it, then guess what? Now the angle of everything that I see shifts, and I can now move in a way. But if I stay seated in a position, or if I'm laying down, guess what? That means I'm not going to be able to take advantage. That's why they talk about eagles all the time. Eagles have a certain vantage point in height that they have to go to.
Oh,
They rise above the storm and they soar.
that's good.
And so we have to now make sure that we are rising above the storms of life, and that we stop just thinking, woe is me, because life is getting hard or whatever. Life is hard for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so guess what? Okay, but just because life is hard for me, I know I can't quit. I know I got so many people waiting for me to overcome whatever it is that I'm dealing with, even though those people don't know what I've had to walk through.
Yeah. True.
And so we have to now come out of just this victim mentality, and we got to start taking victory over even the situations that we're in, as well as the feelings and emotions that arise in those moments.
Yeah.
I think that's one important thing I have to say, and I saw you thinking, Darnisha, so I know you got to talk. But when you said that about the journey and walking through stuff, I thank God for everything that we've had to walk through, because we didn't allow it to make us a victim of life. And if you're truly going to overcome life, you're going to have to deal with it and overcome it. But this is what I tell my clients. Once you get through it and you've dealt with it, what is it? At that point, like, you didn't did it, you didn't came with it. We're so stuck as a people because we'll rather say, oh, this happened to me. But what happens when you actually happen to it? That's a whole different situation. Yeah, stuff happens to us. All three of us, things have happened to us. What I thank God about, because I'm connected to God, because I'm connected with these people, Miss Crystal included, I've been able to walk through everything like I have never dealt with it. That's a healed person. I'm going to walk through it. I'm going to get through it. You come out on the other side, you help people deal with it. This is what life is about. We shouldn't get stuck. Like what Miss Crystal said, you shouldn't get stuck in it. You should already be walking through it like I'm walking out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a topic we can discuss.
Yeah. I wanted to address the second part of Miss Crystal who said, so if you have choices but you don't know that you have choices, you make no change. Most people know they have choices, they don't want to make them.
Right.
Mm.
They simply just don't want to make them. It's easier to avoid making a decision than just simply making a decision, living with it, and then moving on. And so, with anything you make, I'm talking about even from the simplest decisions, choosing vegetables as opposed to the bag of chips, drinking water as opposed to soda. I mean, those are, in the grand scheme of things, small decisions we have to make. Well, we have to look at our life decisions, our mental health, and how we're dealing with things in our life. We just like you make those small decisions of food choices, you have to look at your mental health. And the thing about it is, those food choices may have temporary things on it, but the life decisions that you make according to your mental health, as we're talking today, your matters of your heart can be life literally changing. So, do I want to sit on this small scale of not making a decision to do something different, like attending therapy?
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody in my family ever did it. I know a friend, but she said that she didn't like her therapy. Like all the other reasons we give ourselves, right? You,
Excuses.
excuses, absolutely.
Yep.
Uh, you make those choices, just like you make every other choice in your life. And yes, it can be daunting. So I'm not trying to make it sound like it's just so simple. Because yes, it definitely can be daunting depending on the things that you're dealing with in life. But you have 100% the power over that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we forget that, like I said on Second Timothy, he's given us power, and we don't use it
Utilize
when
it.
we truly and really need to be using it. We then dim our lights and pretend like we don't have these choices because sometimes the decisions are difficult. But the power has always been there. We just have to utilize it. Um, and one of those steps is like you saying, making sure you're getting your word and utilizing therapy when you know you're dealing with some tough stuff that you haven't ever really addressed. Or maybe you did, but you didn't finish it because we have a lot of people who don't go through the entire process, and then 3 months later they hitting us up. Finish the process, continue it, keep fighting through it. Even if you got to pause to deal with some personal things, go back to it. Continue to use the practical applications and tools that we give you. That's another thing. People get good. It's just like medicine. We always talk about this. They get a little bit of success and they stop. You're not
Mm-hmm.
done. Keep going. Keep
Mm-hmm.
going. Even as therapists, our healing journey is a continuous process. Yes, we're in a much better spot than we were 5, 10 years ago, but it's the continuous journey. Why? Because life continues happening. We continue to learn more about life. We continue to learn more about God. We continue to learn more about how to become a better therapist. We continue to learn more about how to continue creating content so we can have these practical applications. So the stuff we learn, we give it to y'all so you can
Yeah.
use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your healing journey is no different in that. Your healing journey is no different in that. It's a continuous process. When what we know now as women in this stage in our life, as opposed to what we knew 20 years ago about love, about God, about how to make important decisions, about leaving stuff to God, about utilizing the tools we have available, looks far different. So just imagine if we got healed at 25 and stopped our growth, we wouldn't be who we are today.
Right.
We definitely would be.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, Tatiana, you got anything?
Oh, I see that Miss Crystal said fear is real, but keep going. But here's the
Absolutely.
thing, fear most definitely will keep you stuck. And if continue to be like, well, I'm just not going to do it because I'm afraid, I would rather you do it afraid than not do it at all. Because at
There you
least
go.
you know
There
that
you
you
go. Yep, you're
tried,
doing
Mm-hmm.
right?
it.
And so we don't know what works. I didn't know when I was growing up that me being a therapist most definitely was the last thing I saw happening in my life. Me, Tatiana, no. And it wasn't as if I ran track, so it wasn't as if I was trying to even train for the Olympics either. But I would have never saw my life turn this corner like this. But I'm so grateful that I didn't give up. I didn't allow me having 2 kids stop me from going back to school. I didn't allow a divorce to stop me from continuing to make sure that I'm doing what God is asking me to do. We have to continue to keep walking, and we can't continue to let circumstances and people and things say you can't do that. You won't be successful at that. So I don't care what people say or think. I know what God said to me about me, and I know who I am. So I'm gonna at least try. If nothing else, I'm gonna at least try. I'm not saying that those aren't hard and difficult decisions, but I would rather make a tough decision and walk away from what I know is killing me versus staying stuck in a place and die there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. And
Yeah.
so pretty much that's where we're at with matters of the heart. Are you going to let what has happened to you kill you?
Yeah.
Or do you let it push you to doing something about it? Because you can be dead and still living.
Mm.
Yes.
Like your heart, when your heart dies, that's where how your life is dead. This is why we talk about depression so much, things of that nature. You're here, but you're not here. You're not present. And this is important. I think we've addressed everything with matters of the heart. I thank you, Miss Crystal, for all your comments. And like we said, you are a very, very awesome and amazing woman as well. Thank you for always giving us good input. Thank you for believing in us. Thank you for supporting us. We truly love and appreciate you. Before we end, we just want to share that we'll be at Northeast Missionary Baptist Church June 29th, where we'll be discussing the mind, which is going to be a great, great topic to share. With our summits, we always give out practical tools. We give out the knowledge, and we also give out lesson plans for everyone to do. Our last one was amazing. We got so much good feedback from it. We're going to continue to keep this going. So any churches, any Christian organizations, any spirit-led churches, or organizations, if you're like what you're hearing, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. God has commissioned us to spread the good news, and that is about healing and healing God's way, because we're all going to come into a time like COVID where we're going to need some tools. So we're trying to get the word out there, and I thank you, Miss Crystal. She said all these topics can be addressed in therapy, and your information is not shared. That is so important, and this is what we're trying to get out here, because it's time for us to really get the tools and to heal. So we've all been sharing about the link to our summit. And until next time, we'll see you guys soon. Continue to shine bright.